What's up everybody, I'm Gooshy, and in this video we're going to be going over everything you need to know about crafting. We'll be talking about reforging and rerolling perks, and what order you should be doing them in because it does matter. We'll also talk about how this affects your overall key so that you can maximize the gear with the perks that you want, and ideally when the best time to craft gear is. So with that, let's get started. To get into the crafting menu, once you're hovering over a certain item, you can press square for modifications. On the left hand side, the icons show how many pieces of that gear can be re-rolled. Starting with the top is reforging the whole item, as indicated by the yellow refresh icons. Starting from the top, it'll re-roll the item's key with a range indicated on the right hand side. The range will differ from gear to gear, but is calculated the same. So the lowest part of the range will be the current key of that item. The highest will be your current key of your highest items in your inventory. So before crafting, you don't have to equip your highest gear to increase this range value. I wanted to talk about this a little more because I see a lot of people getting this wrong. You do not have to equip the highest gear possible to get the most damage or damage resistance. If you look at the difficulty of the activity that you're doing, as long as you're in that recommended key range, you'll be dishing out and taking the same amount of damage. In this example, I equipped the gear so that my current key level is 35, which is the minimum key required for a silver story mission. So here we are in Severed Hearts, and the enemy that I'm testing on is this blue swordsman. Instead of hitting him with my sword, I'm going to throw a kunai so it's not affected by any stats or modifications on my gear. And so when I throw the kunai, it does around 1 bar of damage. And I'll let him hit me with a 3-hit combo, and this takes me to around the halfway mark of the second resolve bar. Next, I tested with a key level of 68. I'll hit him with that kunai, and again, he takes 1 bar of damage. I let him hit me with that combo, and it looks like he does less damage, but the difference is so incremental for that much of a key difference that I think that using lower level gear just for their perks is definitely worth it. So again, I want to emphasize that you do not have to have the gear with the highest key equipped. So if you have a katana that you like a specific stance or a certain weapon with some really good perks on it, as long as it's in that recommended key range for that mission, your base stats will still stay the same. Only the properties on the gear itself will increase or decrease the amount of damage you do. And even if you have this lower level gear equipped, when you complete that mission, you'll still get drops that are equivalent to your highest possible key in your inventory. Alright, so back to crafting. Since reforging refreshes all perks and all properties, if you're reforging, you should always prioritize key. Ideally, you want an item with a high starting key, or if you have the materials to spend, you can just reforge that all the way up to your current key. Since every time you reforge and that item's key goes up, that bottom value of the possible key range will also go up. The next thing you could reroll is the rarity of the gear. If you look on the far right hand side, it'll show the possible outcomes and the odds that the gear would be upgraded from a epic to a rare. However, this is something that's not that important because you shouldn't be crafting rare gear, only epic gear. And that's because of the next section you could reroll. And these are the properties. Rare gear only has 1 property, while epic and legendaries have 2 properties that you can reroll. Properties are mostly stat boosts. This could be things like increased melee or increased stagger. Your options differ depending on what item you're crafting. You can see the possible outcomes on the right hand side. However, all the options might not be available to you and will show up as question marks. These are properties you haven't found yet and are unlocked when you find a piece of gear with this property. So the more gear that you get, the more properties that you find, the more options you have for rerolling your properties. The next piece on this gear that can be rolled is the perks. Similar to the properties, you will have to find perks from other gear drops to unlock all the possible outcomes. However, I do think that the perks are more impactful than the properties that you can get. So much so that some perks are even better than the effects you can only get on legendaries. Alright, so that's everything you can reroll. But there's one really important thing that I didn't find out until I started playing with the crafting system. As an example, if I just craft a different perk for this sticky bomb over here, then get this really cool option to keep the existing perk or take the new one, which is lucky. I'll select keep, and now the 2 properties that I could reroll before are not available and locked. And so what this means is that you can only reroll 1 thing on a piece of gear, whether that be the perk or the property. Once you reroll it, you have to reforge to open up the options again. And so what this means is that after that first step of getting the key that you want, you should not reroll the properties or the perks until you get 2 modifiers that you really like. Then you could just reroll the 3rd modifier as many times as you want. So to summarize that all up, once that piece of gear is at the key that you want, either through a random drop or just by reforging a bunch of times until you get that piece of gear's key to your current key level, Then you want to reforge until you get 2 modifications that you like, whether that be the properties or the perks. Once you find that, then you roll that specific perk or property as many times as you want until you get the one that you need. I did want to mention that the materials that you need for crafting are pretty rare, especially the blessings, which you mostly get from the daily challenges. However, if you've been farming gear a lot, if you dismantle items, you do get 1 or 2 blessings, which is a really good way to farm for materials. Both reforging and rerolling take 2 blessings, so just make sure you have enough when you're crafting. So that's everything you need to know about how to craft items. The next question is when you should be crafting items. So like I said before, as long as you're within recommended key level for the activity that you're doing, your key doesn't matter. However, once you want to do an activity that's higher than the key that you already have, then I'd recommend crafting. I'm pretty stingy and don't like to use materials a lot, so I've just been using gear that have 1 or 2 perks that I like. This will probably change when I get closer to endgame, getting that 110 key level gear, and especially for the raid. And with that, that's everything you need to know about crafting in Ghost of Tsushima Legends. I hope you guys found this useful. If you did, please drop a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the Ghost of Tsushima content that I post, please consider subscribing. You can find all the videos that I post. With that, thank you for watching. Hope to catch you in the next one, and GG.